Vila Loukas.
And I'm Vanessa Nova, and welcome back to another episode of the Cosmic Conduit podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Leo. Are you excited, Vila?
Oh my gosh, so excited, Vanessa. Oh my gosh, so much good stuff here. I can barely wait.
I can't even believe it's Leo already. It's pretty fantastic. We're here. It's like the summer. It's like the sun's out, and we've been on this journey together with all of these archetypes. And, every time we talk a little bit more about why we're doing this and why the archetypes are so important. All of these 12 archetypes of the zodiac that we know from astrology, that people say, oh yeah, what's your sign? It's my sun sign, etc. And people are starting to learn more about astrology just in general, right? But what we're doing here is a little bit different spin on astrology, and that we're really not saying like, what's your chart? What's your, what's in the stars for you? Because yes, that's valuable. But what we really want to do here is learn how to use these archetypes in our life, all 12 of them, and apply them in a way that is useful and can help us transcend and can help us show up in the new paradigm at this higher frequency that we need to be showing up as, right?
Totally. And one of my, favorite analogies for this, because it really is energy we can just take and work with and use. We've used the analogy of the artist and the paint palette, but another one, that's a little more Leo friendly in this conversation is it's kind of like having a whole archetypal closet, like a whole set of outfits. Like, ooh, which archetypal energy do I want to like take out, put on for myself this day, because there's something specific I want to be doing in the world where that energy is going to help me most.
Exactly. And another way that you can put it is like, yeah, you can put on, those clothes, put on the Leo clothes, or, take on that role. That's another way to look at it. It's like, what character are you playing today? And so we're going to look into what kind of character Leo is, and, what kind of playfulness can we bring into our lives? So there's so much here to talk about.
I love that you use those terms just there, because actually I don't even know if I shared this with you, but back in the day, even well before I specifically started training with the Modern Mystery School. So Vanessa and I are both certified as guides and teachers and healers with the Modern Mystery School International. We're also initiated as Wiccan priestesses. So we do ceremonies, we do full moon ceremonies, we celebrate the wheel of the year. And, bringing about all of this archetypal magic is such an important piece. But even before all of that, I had a workshop series that I was leading called Playing with Archetypes. And literally what I did was I brought this whole like trunk of like dress up clothes, and we would practice what is it like to put on different archetypal energy. And so great, you put on the crown, and so right now you entered the room as the queen. So not just looking like the queen, but how do you have to stand? How do you have to hold yourself? How do you speak that's different? And then where in your life do you want to bring the queen? When do you want to enter the scene as the queen, and how is that going to go for you? Like, how is that going to help? And so we would practice. And what was so fun about this workshop series is that, we take turns, right? Getting to put on the different roles. And then the audience, the rest of the group would kind of give the like, did you nail it? Or you kind of not quite there? Like, yeah, no, that's not quite it. Not from a critical perspective, but just sometimes it's hard to know how you're coming across, right? And that's very much a theme in the world of Leo too, is like, what is the impact you're making on the audience? Is that energy coming across fully? Like, are you really acting as a channel and a vessel for what that archetypal energy is about for yourself? Or is there places where you can really hone it a little further or bring it in a little bit stronger? So lots of cool ways to really play with what this work can do for you.
I love that. That's such a great embodiment exercise. And so that goes into also another piece that we're doing in this work here together and with our community is embodiment work. Like, yes. What do you need to do to take this archetype and live it and be that in your body through ceremony, through ritual, through, knowing yourself so that you can actually take on, put the clothes on and be it for whatever that moment is. And so should we dive in a little bit to Leo?
Let's
Because
dive
we're
in. Let's
already
dive
in.
in.
I feel it. I
Yeah,
feel it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
it.
So Leo, very much the performer, right? Very much the star. And with that, just as you were speaking about the embodiment piece of it, without that side of how that expression can come through, there really is no Leo energy, because it's all about, it's the sun, right? It's the energy that's about go out, go forth, be big, shine, express, be the fullness of who you are. The lion, right? That's Leo, the lion.
And so with that, we get all of these really amazing positive qualities. Like we mentioned playfulness, and there's like this sense of creativity, performing, being an artist, expressing yourself, showing up, being in the spotlight. So all of those things are, what we think about when we look at Leo. Leo is like there to shine. And yeah,
and to lead, there's Leo has a very dynamic energy and magnetic, and I think that's so those who are very natural Leos, and I think we all know these people in our lives, it's just so easy for them to come forth and be willing to like have all eyes, have attention on them, right? I am not a Leo. And I have a tiny bit, I think I have let me see, I think it's my Saturn is in Leo, so that's kind of an interesting dynamic. You've got some Leo in your chart, right?
I got big Leo. So my Jupiter is in Leo, which is really more about like how do you expand into your purpose, into the world in a way that's going to be abundant. And there's luck there, like the planet of Jupiter, like it's about expansion and growth. So I've consciously been working on growing into that edge for the last several years of like owning that, like, because I am a creative person and I am a person that likes to be in the world and the spotlight and to show up and to lead. Like that is something that I've always kind of had, like a leadership quality. But like it also is like this bigger, like this bigger sense of showing up. And I actually did have to work on that, like the fear of being seen.
Well, and I love that about Leo too, is the creativity side of it, because we have a couple of signs in the zodiacal wheel that are more like leadership signs, right? Like Capricorn is also kind of a natural leader, but the difference, Leo, it does it in a very, very different way. It's more so like, hey, I'm making this happen in my life. Like I'm doing this cool thing. I'm creating, it's the star. It's like the rock star. Like I'm doing this cool thing, and you all should come do it with me, or like pay attention or follow me because I'm doing this cool thing. And so it's not so much like Capricorn, which is like, all right, gather the peoples, we're gonna, trudge through the trenches and move into these different, realms of exploration. It's like Leo's like, we're having fun, we're having a good time. It's like leadership from a place of just shining so bright and allowing that authentic place of this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what brings me joy. Leo is such a joyful sign, it's big sun energy, and like you were saying, at this time of year, it's the height of summer, it's when we want to be playing, we want to be enjoying ourselves. And so that is very much that natural state of Leo, is just like enjoying the experience of that authentic expression of self.
Right. Well, I think that the leadership of Leo is different from Capricorn and Aries or other leadership, qualities in the different archetypes, in that Leo is the most charismatic. Like there's like this, like you said, the word magnetism, and there's this sense of like showing up and like, let's do this, but it's coming from just like that self-expression of like pure magnetism, charisma, and shining. And so that's like the really beauty, the beauty of Leo, and the place that we want to draw from, because there's when we think of Leo as like sometimes there's a lot of other like shadow things that tend to happen like that. I think because Leo shines so bright, I think the shadows also like show up in obvious ways too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So shall we head into that, kind of talking about the how the shadow of Leo shows up?
Yeah,
So,
for you, where have you seen that?
you mean with people that I
The
know or
sh-
in myself?
yeah, either. Well, people you know, like, but what's the shadows
Yeah,
of Leo that you've seen?
yeah. So, I think what can happen is Leo can get a little bit turned in on themselves, right? Leo energy, because it is so much about like that expression of self, that sometimes that dynamic between self and audience can get kind of twisted or distorted, or there can be some tension between in that self and audience kind of, what is the witnessing that's happening. So sometimes in Leo it can turn into just too much, right? Like too much focus on me, right? The ego can take over. So we know, Leos can become egotistical, right? They can get, big heads and be overly arrogant and kind of just not able to see from any other perspective. And so that distortion of the filters, where it's like, it's kind of my way or the highway, is definitely, an aspect of Leo. And then also that another place where that relationship between self and audience can get distorted is in sort of where a Leo can become more, have like an addictive quality, where it's like, I need that external input, like I need my audience to adore me. I need the attention to like keep me bolstered, because that's the feed of shining. And so that's kind of an incorrect place for that flow to come from. It's a distortion or a shadow aspect of Leo.
It could be kind of like an addictive thing or an attachment, like you said. It's like that adulation comes through, and it's like, I want more, I want more. And we've seen, we know what addictive patterns look like. It just can get out of control.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It becomes like a feed line, like I'm not okay, or like when you think about somebody who's got like a substance addiction or like a drug addict, where it's like, I need my next fix, right? I need my next fix of that adoration and attention. And we see this a lot in the world of like Hollywood, for example, right? Big stars who maybe don't quite know how to handle the fame. Fame is a big piece of Leo as well, right? With that being the rock star, being the performer. And so when you become, really renowned in whatever the work is that you're doing, especially in the world of, film and acting, or even music, the music industry, if you those people that rise really fast and have all of this attention and then all of this pressure that comes with the attention, and then they don't know quite how to cope with it. And so that's where you see those really sad stories of where the fame just really kind of destroyed people's lives, because it was difficult to find the right balance point with those feed lines, where it's like, yes, you want to show up and bring something amazing to your audience, but do it in a way that's healthy.
yeah. I mean, I think along with that whole thing with fame, another thing besides like the imbalance that you're talking about, like another thing that can happen is like, because you're so exposed, like everything is seen in the public, you can end up kind of isolating, or like, I think that another thing that happens is like, somebody who's, for example, like in the spotlight, then has all these people around them that like tend to them, and then they only get yeses, they never get nos. So then it becomes a distortion of their psyche.
Right.
And then that can like lead to sort of like these like narcissistic kind of tendencies, qualities. And then, like it can get out of control pretty quickly. And this is a sign also where we can see like narcissism, like it can show up anywhere, but like, and then that comes from wanting to protect that sense of self, like this sense of self that's actually like false, right? It's not even a real sense of self. It's coming from like a wanting to protect, or coming from an insecurity or a trauma that I have to be this big performance.
Definitely. And it's really interesting to tease out, that dynamic of how narcissism, ends up coming to be or is played out, because, there tends to be in a narcissistic relationship, there's sort of the narcissist and the codependent, right? So there's sort of a dynamic between two different personality types or two different, expressions. And, the narcissist is the one that's willing to be the leader, willing to say, you should do what I say, I'm the one who's really important here. I'm the one who really matters here. You should default to me. And then the codependent is the one that then kind of loses themselves to the narcissist, right? And so it's this interesting feed loop. And so, neither is like better or worse, right? To say like, oh, the narcissist is really the bad one and the codependent's, the victim, is kind of usually what we play out in the story. We would say from the perspective of, mystery school teachings or just from self-empowerment, both are equally distorted. And it's really about claiming power correctly for both sides. And it just happens to be that, this side of it, the narcissistic, self, focus on self, it is an important archetype to have a healthy relationship with, right? So it's not a bad dynamic to begin with, right? So, there's nothing inherently bad about Leo. We need this brilliance and this shining. I mean, it is the sun energy, like we need the sun to shine. We need people who are willing to allow that brilliance to come forth. And, we all need to have a skill set in that. We all need to have a certain level of comfort with it. And when we don't, is when we run the risk of falling into those patterns and those dynamics with then maybe somebody else who is willing to. And so then we end up being, the codependent to a narcissist or something along these lines.
Right. And we've talked about a lot about in our previous episodes and the different ones about the axis of two signs. And there's like, we'll get into this later in the next episode as well, but like there is always going to be this dance between the self and the other, or like the self and the world. And so that's where we can look at this again, because it is about, like Leo is about the self, and is it too self-absorbed, or is it just like a pure expression of self? And then every chance we have to talk about these archetypes and tease all of this out, we're asking the question, what does the expression of this archetype look like without the negative, like without the negative ego, without distortion, without coming from these sort of subconscious shadows and programming that are limiting. So it could limit us in that we're showing up in a way that's not authentic, or it could limit us in a way that's like, I don't even want to show up. And so that's something that I've dealt with a lot, like both personally, that like I've always been able to be in the spotlight, and as a dancer or actor or singer, performer, I've been in that world for a long time. But when it came to like a certain level of my leadership and showing up in service as a spiritual guide and as a healer, like there was like sort of this like cap that I reached, and I could still feel that there was like certain fears that were there about being seen. And I was able to move through those with a lot of work and directed, targeted work about like getting through whatever those blocks were. But then, one of the other places I see this a lot, because I have a marketing agency, with my friend Leah, and in that work that we do, we help light workers and healers and holistic practitioners, and we help them to show up in the world with their brand, with their business. So it's really more about like creating a brand strategy and a brand identity for them as an individual or as a business. And the biggest block and the biggest problem that I've seen in the last, I've been doing this actually for probably 10, 15 years. Like as long as I've been a healer, I've been helping other people show up in this way. But the biggest thing that I've seen over the years is like this fear of being seen. And it shows up in like these really like mind-blowing ways. Like people that I know that are leaders and people that I know that are showing up really big in the world will come up against this opportunity to hide, or come up against an opportunity. It's not conscious, it's a subconscious thing, but like there's this massive fear of being seen. Can you relate to that, or have you seen that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 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 And this kind of, I'd love to just take this directly into, so our new paradigm anchor for Leo. So, so what is the expression? What is this higher expression of the energy of Leo that we're wanting to emphasize and embrace in this, new paradigm? So in this new era of who we are as humans on the planet. And so that is all about courageous brilliance. So having the courage to show up and be your brilliant self. So this sounds really kind of basic, like, yeah, okay, sure, of course. But when, it's exactly the antithesis of what you're talking about, right? So what does it mean to be seen for who you really are? We talk about self-expression all the time and being authentic, and like we throw these terms around. And, I think when it comes down to what it really translates to in interactions with people in the world, it is so much more raw and challenging than, and uncomfortable, because it's literally that light, that spotlight we were talking about right there on you. And so anything that you've got going on is on display. Anything you haven't resolved within yourself is casting shadows, as that light comes in. And it's all there for anyone who's looking to see. And so it's incredibly vulnerable. And so it does take really, really, really potent courage to be willing to stand up in that way. And because with that too, when you're in that spotlight, that energy coming in, and you're amplified, when you're on stage and shining your light in that Leo way, you're making an impact on your audience. We're talking about that relationship between self and audience. That's the whole point of being on stage. You don't, get on stage or be in the spotlight for no reason. You do it to have an impact in some way. And so then as the conduit for whatever that impact is, then you become responsible for however that impact goes out, right? So if you're not totally clear or centered or aligned, that's one of our favorite words here, then it's easy to then, where those distortions of those shadows get projected out and amplified for everyone to see, for you to see, for other people to see, and it's scary. So that, fear of being seen is huge.
Right, because it's like being under a magnifying glass, right? Like you said, everything is on display. So it does really take a huge amount of courage to do that. And regardless of if you have Leo in your chart and like Leo qualities of leadership and showing up and being the spotlight are in your chart and it comes naturally for you, we all have a world or a kingdom that we're responsible for. So we really do have a responsibility, and especially for if you're listening to this, you're somebody who wants to make an impact. You're somebody who wants to help people, to serve, to be, to be a light in the world, to be the change that you want to see in the world. So you do have a responsibility to do the work that it takes to know yourself, to know what is not you, because we're calling for authentic self-expression. So if you need to put masks on to show up so that you're showing up there in a way that's not even who you are, that's not it, that's not sustainable. And it's not like where we're headed in the new paradigm. And then, you need to, in the first place, you need to come up with the courage to actually just show up and be vulnerable and be seen in the first place. And that does, take practice. It takes time. It takes like doing the work. And yes, you are going to feel vulnerable. And yes, you are, going to be in the spotlight. But as you grow, as you learn, as you actually overcome some of your shadows, it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think that's also another place that we're heading. Is like people want authenticity. People want that vulnerability.
Well, and it's where we can really thrive in true service is when we are willing to be vulnerable in that way. And one of the ways I like to talk about it, this courageous brilliance right here, is a willingness to be seen without, or to be in the spotlight or be center stage without putting on a show. So without a costume, right? Without, like you said, the masks, like you're not putting on a show. You're bringing you on to center stage. And, you know, how many people really do that? You know, like probably not that many in the world, right? Because we're constantly using masks as a way to then buffer, right? Buffer that everything we've just been talking about, that fear of being seen, and that, you know, taking responsibility for the impact that you make. If you're wearing a mask, if you're, you know, you've got a costume on and you're just out there doing your thing, you may be very skilled as a performer in that way, and hooray, good job, but that's not the courageous brilliance we're talking about. And, you know, you used a word earlier that I'd love to highlight here. You talked about, you know, each of us has our domain, our kingdom, right? So there's a whole piece of this courageous brilliance that's about claiming our royalty, you know, the truth of our divine essence. And, you know, the lion is the king of beasts, right? There is this innate royalty in Leo, and that the shining of the sun, you know, the light coming forth from this very authentic place, showing up as you in your highest form, you know, in your best, you know, maybe putting your best foot forward, yes, but not with a mask on, right? With the masks off, and you've done your work, you've worked to know thyself, like you were speaking to, and really showing up to be in service with your best self in the lead.
Right. Yeah, and there really is a big difference between showing up with a mask, like this is the character I have to play, or I have to be, you know, extra this to actually show up and be liked or be received or whatever. Like there's a difference between showing up with a mask versus like showing up, yes, I'm not perfect, I'm being vulnerable, but this is like a piece of myself that I know and I'm comfortable with, and I'm going to shine with that.
Exactly. And, you know, I was just going to circle right back to that exact point, because we started out saying like, oh yeah, you know, here's your archetypal closet, you know, pick which role you want to play. It's not that you're putting on a mask, or that you're doing something that's not true to you. You're actually emphasizing a particular aspect. It's like we all have all these facets. It's like the jewel, you know, it's the diamond where, you know, it's not just one expression. We have all of these different expressions. That is the truth of who we are. You know, when people come to us for, you know, a life activation, for example, it's a 22 strand DNA activation. That's what we're doing. We're activating all of those different aspects of self to be able to express in many different ways. We're not one thing. You know, we are multidimensional beings. And so with this courageous brilliance, you get, you know, even that, I love that, even with that analogy of the jewel, right? You know, the jewel, the diamond, you know, one of the markers that they gauge them with is brilliance. How much does it shine? How much does the light refract from that, the true core of where, you know, the quality of the stone from its innermost core, right? So yeah, so much here. Oh my gosh.
It's really, you know, as you're talking, I was thinking about like this strength card, right? You have the strength card, we have that here. And really, I feel like, you know, going into what you just said about royalty, like we all do have the responsibility. You know, if you are here to serve and you're here to be a spiritual being and be a light in the world, and for yourself too, you have the responsibility to get to know what your strengths are and shine with those strengths. And, you know, each one of us has the capacity and the responsibility to be the main character in our own lives. Like we have to be. And so, you know, can you tell us a little bit more about the strength card?
Sure. So yeah, I have it here too. So so here you have this lovely person, this human person, generally understood male. So she's crowned. So there's a connection to our reference to royalty there. And then you see that infinity loop over her head. So this is kind of demonstrating her flow and connection to the divine. And, you know, the lion here has this beautiful wreath collar. and she's got her hands up in his mouth. And so what a number of ways to talk about this, but the thing that I'll emphasize here as we're talking about it is she's got control over this potentially extremely ferocious animal, right? Her hands are in his mouth, like she's up, got her fingers up in his teeth. And this is showing, it's speaking to where that higher consciousness or the higher self is really kind of steering more of the lower self or the animal self. And in a way, I love sort of what you said earlier that reminds me of what we have going on here in that embodiment, right? So it's like she's connected to this raw energy of this animalistic sense. The lion is not in this, as an animal part of self, isn't a negative attribute at all. It's raw power, right? But it's the kind where if it's worked with unconsciously or allowed to get out of control, it's kind of what will make a mess of our lives. It's like our unconscious, subconscious minds. It's our patterns that run us, that can run us. But here, it's not running the show. She's running the show. She's the one who is going to be steering that head of the beast. And so taking this raw power and directing it in a way that's helpful. So that another term for the strength card is the helpful animal. So it's like, where can that instinctual side of self, or, when you think about a performer on stage, they're not, they can't analyze everything. It's not like a scientist, looking at data, analyzing, it's just in the moment, right? That's what makes a performer really, really good, is they're present in the moment, they're embodied, they're responding to what's going on in the highest possible way, right? And so that's really what this card is showing, is like, how can we get present to that degree and really bring mastery over those parts of ourselves that can get us where we want to go or get us in trouble.
Well, I think that totally relates to what we're talking about of courageous brilliance, because it takes doing the work to overcome all of the shadows that stop you, or the shadows that make a mess in your life, so that you can come from a higher place, like your higher self, and like you're the true you is what is coming out in the world to shine. So not only does it take courage to, show up, it takes courage to do the work that it takes to show up in an authentic way. So that's what we're saying here.
Yeah, and to keep showing up. I think it's one thing to like be on stage one time and be like, "Yee, here I am." Bye. But you were talking about, the challenge that we have as healers or as teachers or as practitioners, and the world needs us, right? The world needs us to show up. But it does mean we are on stage a lot. We're in the spotlight. I mean, even you and I right now, on this podcast series, we literally have light shining on us right here, and we're broadcasting out to bring a message. And so we're on stage, we're going to be scrutinized. We're going to have people that are like, "Oh, I really like this part. Oh, what's she doing over there?" Or, whatever they're saying. And that fear of that scrutiny, is it's easy to want to be like, "Yeah, let me just hide. Let me just duck under this table here and not have all the challenge of what it means to stand up to that." But ultimately, we can't serve under those circumstances. I can't reach my people. You can't reach your people if we're hiding under the desk. We're not gonna have that amplification of what is, the light that my system is specifically designed to refract and shine out, and the light that is specific to you to shine and refract out, so that we can do what we're designed to do, and to reach people and to help be these way showers. That is our calling, and that's why we're here with the Cosmic Conduit, because there's all of this wisdom, there's all of this depth of capacity, and each individual, the mystery school teachings are all about, we are divine beings. We're here with a unique life purpose, and it's all encoded in the DNA. No one is better than anyone else. We all each have our own unique essence. And like you've mentioned so many times, it's having the courage and the diligence to do the work to bring that forth, and to be willing to shine it, be willing to be on center stage, to allow that light to go forth, and to do that consistently, and to have that be like, okay, no matter what, no matter where I am, great. I'm going to amplify that light. I'm willing to speak my message, regardless of the scrutiny or the backlash that comes as a result, because it probably will.
And it takes strength to get there. I think that was one of my biggest, pieces that I had to work through, was like the fear of like, if I show up in this bigger way, then I will have to like defend myself, or I'll have to be under scrutiny, or, and I think that's even, it's happening in the world today. Like spiritual things are being attacked, like there's things online where, are you a Miley Cyrus fan? I wasn't going to bring it up, but like recently, Miley Cyrus, who's, immensely popular and has a huge following, was falsely accused of being in the Modern Mystery School, which also was being accused of being a cult. And, I don't know that she's actually responded to it, or her people have responded to it. Both of those things aren't true, because number one, we're not a cult. Yes, we're a training organization. Yes, like we charge for classes, but none of that is, cult like, other than we're really passionate about what we do. And we really are pretty out there when it comes to like breaking through illusions and the matrix and teaching people to think for themselves. But, Miley Cyrus is somebody who has to like be able to withstand lies being thrown at her or things like that. So it really does take like the strength of character for us to stand up and to take whatever comes our way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, this is such an ongoing theme, and it's so important for the new paradigm, because we cannot get away with what we could get away with before, right? We could get away with kind of hiding, or like being kind of half out there and kind of half not. It's not the thing anymore. The energy has shifted on planet Earth. The veils have dissolved and, are thin and don't exist. And therefore we can't hide. And so the more we try, the more we kind of end up in so many of these distortions. And so, working with the alchemy of what this, energy of Leo is all about is exactly what we're going to be doing in our upcoming online ceremony, which we'd love to have you join us for. One other thing I'll say about that too is, there's so many of us that are working on this piece, right? How can I show up? How can I be willing to be seen and be okay with the burden, like you were describing, having to cultivate that thick skin or deal with whatever's thrown at you? It feels like a burden. And so when we're doing this in community, and we can understand and talk about these kinds of dynamics and challenges, we can support one another in it. And, I know for me personally, how much I have been supported by you, Vanessa, in this exchange. And just because this dynamic so well, and there's times where you're like, I'm not feeling it, and I can support you, be like, okay, hey, we're just gonna do this piece and make it happen, or vice versa, right? Times when you kind of kick my butt into gear, or, just work through whatever those challenge points might be. And that's the beauty of community. And so we have been cultivating this online community through our University for the Soul online network, and then the Cosmic Conduit, specifically working with this wheel of the zodiac and these zodiacal archetypes in this alchemical way to help us bring about the highest expression for how to use these energies for ourselves in our daily lives.
Right. And what Vila is saying is, come do magic with us. Come learn how to be, more magical. Use these tools that are really powerful, and then come be seen in a way that's safe. Practice being seen in a way that is safe, and where people actually see who you really are and want to see your true brilliance. Like that's like one of the power of community. And we're holding that space for you. So come join us, and come on this journey with us, because we'd love to have you.
I love that. Practice being seen. That is so good. Yes. So come join us. Follow us, subscribe here for the next episode. We're going to dive into how the dynamic between Leo and Aquarius, how they support one another in this axis as counterpart signs. So we'd love to catch you there. And then click the link, join our online community, and then come participate in ceremony with us, and find ways and tools that you can really specifically work on this piece of the courageous brilliance for yourself. Looking forward to seeing you there.